Hello and welcome to the Friend or Foe Lounge. I am your friendly neighborhood shoutcaster Chargan, and today I have joining me Sivolock and Freelancer, Jeffgodgamer, and the one, the only Oriri deciding to go ahead and join us on the lounge. Guys, thank you so much for dropping by. Really appreciate it. Today we're going to be talking about the Luna Lounge, or Luna games that we just had the past couple of days. Let's just kind of give me your first impressions of how you think they played out. Were they kind of what you expected? Was it your challenge a little bit more or a little bit less than where it was? Or Riri, let's go ahead and start with you.
For me, I was expecting YUBI to dominate BBZ on the first day, mostly because I wanted Orphic to lose for leaving us. I really, the Taz game versus Fraud Squad, I was really hoping Taz would have won that game, but they didn't. I wasn't expecting such a clean win from Serenity Senate either. On the first day, it was just really, I was just really surprised by how clean they were from inside knowledge.
Yeah, I think aside from us, the league obviously looks really close. I think a lot of the games were very close, and you can see, most teams that played are still at that 1-1 slot. So it just shows, I think the middle of this league is going to be very close, and they're all just basically fighting to see who can take on YUBI.
Yep. Is there any particular team you guys are kind of afraid of, or you think you might actually have to worry about?
We're really excited to play H Block. We think that could be a little bit exciting. We play them, in just a few days, so that'll be a fun one to watch.
All right.
Looking at this first game of Serenity Senate versus Skill-based, if I remember correctly, I was really impressed by the LeBlanc this game. It provided a ton of pressure throughout the entire game.
Yeah, no, it's that's kind of the thing. It's we're just looking at the first round draft we had on that first day of Serenity Senate versus Skill-based. It's personally, I was a big fan of Serenity's. I loved seeing the Sejuani Alistar coming out right at the very beginning. That bot lane and jungle combo just kind of, it's always terrifying. And I didn't really like Skill-based's response with the Nocturne and Ornn. I kind of get the Vayne, but I personally, I'm not sure where I stood on that.
I think Skill-based's draft was pretty good. It's honestly something that YUBI would potentially play. Nocturne Galio is always a great combo. Vayne's a good answer into Ezreal, and then you just have a big beefy boy in the top lane to round out your team comp. But I think Serenity Senate played their comp really well. Ezreal really likes queuing into meatballs with his Divine Sunder, just shredding tanks, and just generally Serenity Senate had a pretty good game. Cheeky Pengu, Tiki, and Pishweezy all looked really good in these games, and so it was just a really good game all around from Serenity Senate.
I will say that I don't think the issue's necessarily in SKL's draft, but they clearly were a bit confused on how to play it. Because normally when you have Nocturne Galio, right, this is kind of the YUBI special, when we get Nocturne Galio, you double ultimate backline and super free, right? There's just very low counterplay, you introduce chaos to the darkness. But in this specific draft, Nocturne Galio is actually not doing that, because you're never going to want to backline trade Ezreal LeBlanc for your Vayne. So right. I think Therocles might have had a misunderstanding of what his job is. He actually just needs to ult Vayne every fight when Serenity is engaging on the Vayne. And because they kept using this proactive Galio ultimate, Vayne kind of got hung out every fight. Nami can't really peel solo, so she also dies to LeBlanc. But the concept is there. I think there are a lot of really good tools in SKL, and their mid-game spike is really good. So,
and the Nocturne ulti, even though it's traditionally the Galio Nocturne combo, you use the Nocturne ulti as a way to peel Vayne. It's actually incredibly effective. How are you gonna follow the Vayne when you don't know where Vayne is?
Yeah, she's invisible twice. It's you can't see her either way.
Right. Well, let's
started doing the. Oh, my bad.
No, you're good. You're good. Go right ahead.
They started doing that at the later stages of the game, and it was just a little too late. But in when they started doing it, they were starting to actually get kills. I think the last fight that they had, they got 2 or 3 of the members of Serenity, and it just shows how threatening that comp is when they play the comp correctly.
Yeah, so let's see. We'll try and find some of those clips right here. I know right here we have the first blood, which was a nice trade for top lane Ornn for Dragon. So it's like, so you're just gonna let it play through.
Yeah. So we can kind of talk about what's happening on the other side of the map, like what SKL is getting from it. Like they get the dragon, but Ezreal is not getting like zoned off of any farm, like early on, like he is now. But for the most part, like Ezreal gets all of the CS and XP, and there's a very like low cost gold wise and experience wise to the team for this play up top. And
my biggest problem was
leave the Nocturne to solo the dragon and just have everyone else pressure the lanes. Like I think you can get a lot more here.
Another big issue is you can see that they picked a relatively safe bot laner, Serenity did, and they also have TP on the Ezreal. So the Alistar is going to be definitely looking to roam. At least that's what I would do as an Alistar main. Like I can roam freely into this matchup. They get a kill, but they picked Nami Vayne that has no kill pressure. No, like Nami just gets out traded 100% of the time by an Ezreal. I think at this point they're level 6 or 7. Like there's no backlash that Ezreal has to worry about from the support or the Vayne, because he can just E away and doesn't have to worry about any CC.
Ezreal is so slippery. He's so slippery.
It definitely is possible to zone. You just have to be really particular about your wave control. Like if you hold the wave in your tower, Ezreal can't actually walk up because you can force with a Tidecaller's Blessing into Tumble.
Like exactly where the wave is right now. If it just gets held here and not pushed, it's perfect. Like Ezreal can't do anything.
And what you can actually start doing, so back when I used to play AD with Brian, what we do in these kinds of situations is if we have an overwhelming advantage, but the other person's not fighting us, you can actually just stand in front of the cannon minion every time it rolls in and then take Ezreal keys until the cannon dies. It's pretty brutal, and then you just sustain it back with Nami. So like there are ways to get ahead, but like they're kind of weird, and you don't have this situation very often as a bot lane, so you may not know punish if you're not able to dive, because like diving is the obvious way to capitalize, but like there's no way Vayne Nami's gonna dive Ezreal even 2v1 unless Ezreal's at like half health. So you have to think of another way where you engineer a long lane and then you play to run them down. But it's kind of a weird situation.
Yeah, once you see the 3 people top lane though, I think that it's easy to just have Nocturne solo Dragon, and then you can keep Vayne Nami bot lane to zone Ezreal off.
Yeah, that's it. I think you guys have got some great analysis right there, and so I'm gonna see right here real quick if we can kind of scrub it in. I mean, as we got later into the game, it definitely went in Serenity Center's favor because they were like 21-6 at 22 minutes into the game. I'm trying to find, like you mentioned that there was that really good fight. I think I know which one you're referring to.
They have CC on SKL, but they don't have like an on-demand way to set it up.
Yeah, it's it's really hard to get that off.
Yeah, right.
The best way to beat LeBlanc is to have like that point and click CC. That's why you see a lot of rise into LeBlanc in pro play. Maokai's a good option. Anything you can like immediately CC LeBlanc when she tries to go in basically nullifies a lot of what the champion wants to do. Like LeBlanc doesn't really want to give her life.
A lot of like Lissandra and LCS is like the LeBlanc counter pick, but unfortunately like Belter is just not quite as good as me, so his Lissandra counter pick doesn't always work.
This is kind of how it goes. Yeah, I think honestly with the SER SKL, that was a pretty clear cut and dry game. SER just seemed like they had the better macro overall, and that's why they were able to really pull out that win. The next game immediately after that, so one thing we should definitely touch on before we move on too far is the immaculate gameplay that we have seen from Church of Alfonso. Just because they have won 2 games so far. They are currently undefeated without having gotten a single kill, but also without having given up a single death or tower. So, just
to be honest, they look like they're better than YUBI.
You know,
they have a lot less deaths than we do, so it'll be interesting to see when they do start playing. They were one of our hardest challenges last season, and I am excited to see how they adapt to their 2 new players.
I want to see a new mid laner. They have big shoes to fill after Camel Basil's departure.
Yeah.
Very big shoes to fill. Camel Basil was definitely like some of the glue that held that team together. So strong. One was Fraud Squad versus Taz. I love Taz. I will sing my praises of Taz till the day I die, because I think that they're really great guys, and I think that they're really a lot of fun to watch. However, it's interesting because they seem so different from season 1 when we first met them. I don't know if you guys I know you guys played against them in season 3. But like even those of you who've been around season 2, like they've been a really strong team, and it's kind of interesting to see how they've gone. They did bring Hismi, who is Yoni, back, and so they're trying to get that synergy back going. So do you guys think that that's helping them out, or is it still kind of like they're still trying to find their footing from last season?
I actually was pretty impressed with Taz's first game. I think it was quite close. Even like going into the game, I think their picks were great up until their last pick. Because they have Silas against Malphite and Trundle and Rumble. He has a bunch of great ultis to steal, and all they really need is tankier magic damage top laner like Mordekaiser, who can just run all over this Malphite, and then the game's quite easy. But I think the top laner they picked was Jace. And Jace just kind of says, hey, Malphite, you want to build a ton of armor? Go ahead, and we will never do damage to you. So I do still think Taz, with the losing draft, still played quite well. And I think they will improve now that Yoni is back.
Yep. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And what about you, Oriri? What do you think, based on having watched Taz's performance, kind of?
I'm hoping that, because they're a relatively aggressive team in general, but my biggest worry is if I'm hoping they stay aggressive with proper shot calling, because if they just turn into a shot calling team, it's just going to be another. They're not going to be playing to their strength. One of their strengths is they're relatively aggressive in the lane phase and they get early leads, but their weakness is they don't convert that into objective control or any of that. So I'm hoping that if they get some shot calling, which has been their biggest weakness, that they turn their aggressive into more aggression for objectives rather than sitting back.
Yeah, that's definitely what we got to be looking forward to for them.
Yeah, definitely echoing all of that. It's like, I think Taz's greatest strength is their explosiveness, and I think that's also like their weakness, is they rely on that explosiveness to like open up the game. And what they're really good at doing is, like, if you look at the games they won last season, it's when they exploit like those mistakes on the opposing team, and once they get ahead, they can cement their position and continue to look for those like knife edge fights. So like when they're given that opportunity to fight on even terms and like eke out those advantages, then they really excel. I think maybe what they're running into is like cleaning up those little things, because teams are getting a little bit cleaner overall in the league, and it's harder to find. You may not get as many chances to find those openings. You have to make the ones you do find really count, and then cling on to them and compound that advantage.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of potential in Taz, although I am sad that Falcon rebranded, so now we no longer have Bird Wars. That was always my favorite matchup.
Yeah.
That is true. That is kind of one of the unfortunate things for losing Falcon in that sense. One thing I do want to say is I think it's interesting how the skill floor of the entire FoF league has like elevated way above where it was last season. And it's like, you always talk about how you're breaking skill ceilings and all that, but the skill floor I think is really important to talk about, because we have seen vast improvement across the board for all of the teams that have kind of stuck around from like earlier seasons to now. We were talking about this a little bit before the broadcast, where I think Oriri, you had mentioned like how just people have gotten better overall. And it's like, I think Taz is definitely a good example of that. And Fraud Squad being one of the newer teams coming in, it was really interesting seeing them just kind of how their performance played out against a veteran team. And I'm trying to remember who they played against in day 2. We'll get to that here shortly.
They played against H-Block.
Yeah, they played against H-Block. H-Block won that pretty handily, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so Fraud Squad had a pretty good first week. They showed they can go toe to toe with some of the teams that have been in FoF for a long time. But even still, their win against TAS was a little shaky, and I think H Block kind of exploited those weaknesses a lot harder than TAS was able to, and you could tell just from the overall game score.
Which is just kind of the nature of things. Now, was there anything in particular about Fraud Squad that kind of stood out for you? Because I remember just, I think it was, I know Fang loves their names. Like he'll sing, he says that they're the best named team. And it's, yeah. I think it's kind of funny though. I'm trying to remember if it was the Trundle who had the biggest impact on this game or if it was the Vayne.
It was the Trundle, in my opinion.
Eventually.
I think the Trundle, his pillars were just so on point, and his overall impact during team fights, especially even in the later points of the game where Vayne was starting to pop up, I think it wasn't Vayne popping. I think it was actually Trundle just playing all the fights so clean that it didn't matter what the Vayne did.
Yeah, and speaking of that,
looking back on the game, I actually think the Rumble really played incredibly well this game. He ended with a score of 11, 2, and 12. Just because Rumble ulti plus Trundle pillar is devastating in chokes.
Oh my god!
And they played around the combo really well.
They definitely did.
Have you noticed, like, it seems like Trundle's been a little bit more of a popular pick this time around. It seems like people have like really figured out how to use his pillars effectively. It's just kind of in general, I've noticed for some reason it just feels like he's a little bit more of a popular champion. Do you think we're going to be seeing him a lot more as like kind of like a stapled pick, or is it just happen to play out this first couple of matches?
Trundle has been is quite strong into a lot of the super meta junglers right now. Like he has good matchups against Xin Zhao and Jarvan, who are probably the two most common junglers, and he's also Trundle sort of gets better as the skill level of players go down. So Trundle just kind of puts pillar behind some people, and against champions that don't have a dash, for example in this game, like Samira can only dash in. If Trundle pillar is behind her, she has nowhere to go except for being stuck on Trundle pillar, and she'll just die. So Trundle is been quite good. I think BBZ started picking Trundle, and then we picked up Trundle, and then it seems like a lot of other teams are picking up Trundle this season. So it's definitely a champion that I think is here to stay. So teams should know how to play against it.
It's definitely something you got to watch out for and got to make sure that you're doing. Like right here, we've got a clip going, like just Onbo getting caught out, and the rest of Gua as well. So I think Fraud Squad definitely a team that we got to be watching out for.
One thing to note out there is they very intentionally gave that kill over to Vayne, and they do have that coordination. The other thing, when it comes to Trundle, there are some situations where Trundle just falls a bit short and doesn't do what you really want him to for your team. Like Trundle is incredibly hard to play from behind. And we kind of see that during the BBC game, but we can look at that more then.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we'll end up seeing there. And so with that, I think there was a pause as well during that game. That game ended up going pretty far along. It was like a 21, I'm trying to remember what the final score was. Looks like it was like 28-19, probably had one more big fight as we got to the
final kill score was 33-21.
33-21, yeah, because you got the final fight here. Just the amount of juggling that they had available on the side of Fraud Squad.
It was actually quite impressive from TAS, even though they were down 12 kills and a ton of towers. They only lost the game down 5k gold, which considering they only took a few towers during the game, they were relatively close in gold. So it's something that TAS can definitely look to build on going into these coming weeks.
Yeah, so I think that is something like they just, once they get that shot calling kind of improved, I think that's TAS's biggest thing. And then Fraud Squad is probably got to like whenever we get to the game versus H Block, we'll probably show a little bit more of the cracks in their meta play there.
Yeah. This is my mindset, like maybe people feel otherwise, but I always feel like, fighting is the hardest part of this game. Like if you fight well, and all you have to do is figure out how to go to good places and collect money from minions, then like that's the easy part of League of Legends. Like you can like pause the game and just calculate. Just basically just a math problem. Like, but knowing like damage sense, when to go in, like how to fight, like that's hard. You only get like you can't really think. There's a lot some that you can think through, but a lot of it's just experience. So like if Taz is already fighting well and they just need to iron out like make sure we're farming guys, make sure we're not sacrificing sideways for no reason, like I think they have the raw material that they need to be a strong team.
Speaking of that, I actually wanted to give Gua a lot of credit here. His Samira by the end of this game, even though their team lost, ended up with like 320 CS, which is an insane amount compared to what we normally see in FoF, and something I really want to give credit for. That level of farming and the ability to get your items is going to be incredibly useful for Taz going forward.
Yeah, it's just because it keeps you in the game, keeps you relevant, and lets you actually get to that point where you're able to scale back in rather than falling completely out of the equation. And then we had the last game of day one was BBZ versus YUBI. Because I've got the Catboys here, I want y'all to kind of give me your impression of this draft as we're going through it. Just kind of like, you see the first set of bands come out, and then just kind of like, what is it y'all are thinking during all this?
Well, talking with Red, he actually said, you know, he expected us to play a lot of dive champions, and then he banned all of our dive champions. So we changed it up on the fly. But going in, I'm pretty sure we got almost everything we were looking for when playing against BBZ. I think we only had to change like 1 or 2 champions. I think we weren't expecting BBZ to pull out Trundle so quickly. I think in retrospect, we probably should have expected Trundle from BBZ, but overall, I think we were pretty happy with our draft, and we were just able to take over the game with it.
Yeah, it is kind of unfortunate the way the bans worked out, because like we totally will play dive. Like if they left all our dive characters up, locked into a lot of dive characters, they all got banned. So it's like, well, I guess we can't anymore, right? Like they're all gone.
I feel like if you know they're gonna pick dive, you just play anti-dive and let you have your dive champions. I would still ban the Nocturne and maybe the Zac, but if you know they're gonna play that, you practice to it, and not just banning the champions to have them play a different style. Like you're out of preparation. And personally, like
maybe I shouldn't go around like describe too many of my weaknesses, but you know, like if you're trying to force a team to play dive, right? There are a lot of different dive options in jungle, but I think mid mid in general has more characters, right? So I feel like the bans are actually more effective if you target like mid, and like say if I have no dive characters to play, then you know, like there aren't many range junglers, or like not as many. So
yeah, at this point we're not sure if Trundle's going top or jungle, so we're holding off on a top counter pick. So just go for a solid, I believe it's AD, and is it jungle or support?
I think we lock Kha'Zix here.
We're in the second rotation, right?
Okay.
Yeah, you guys lock in Kha'Zix.
Which
honestly, that surprised me the most. That surprised me so much.
That's with Gragas. He was like, Kha'Zix or Gragas? And we're like, we don't want to see your Gragas, so it's gonna be Kha'Zix, you know?
Yeah, we always want to give Utility Monster a chance to show that he can play any jungler in the game except for Lee Sin.
Just because it's not good enough, or just you don't want to worry about it?
The world is not ready for Utility Monsters, Lee Sin. That's all I'm gonna say. Don't want to leak any more of that. Don't check his PGD, especially his normal game history.
BBZ still did pick a lot of anti-dive. The Kog'Maw Lulu is quite good at saying no whenever you want to dive. The Ziggs pick is also really good at preventing us from diving, but we're not incredibly committed to the dive at our draft. So I think they sort of misread during the draft and just sort of came in, thinking that we were going to play dive and that was the only thing we were going to play. Right. And they just sort of, walked themselves into a losing composition.
Yeah, even from this position, it's already kind of scary because you're picking Kog'Maw Lulu into Ashe, which is already unfavorable. They banned Leona Nautilus, which makes sense, but like they forgot about Blitzcrank, which is actually better in this situation than a lot of like traditional
Yeah.
engages. You don't want to play an engage tank into Lulu, right? Like Lulu is
or Kog'Maw or Trundle. Like you might as well just get rid of the champion that, hey, you're coming to me, I don't have to come to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Now,
I'm looking.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Like I'm looking at BBZ's comp and like they're not engaged. They wanted to kind of kite back, whereas you guys just want to. You don't care about the kite back. You have Blitzcrank, and if they don't have any engage options, they have a Trundle Pillar where that's so, I guess, iffy if they don't play it right, and it's on like a 16-second cooldown. So it's just they have no other option besides playing anti-dive because of their comp. But you guys have ways to catch.
Yeah, and we also
draft though, right? Because like I think BBC, like sure they, even if you're going into this idea of you're playing kite back, I think BBC still has a very playable composition, maybe not favorite, but you have a huge window to play into Camille, right? Camille Hextech Ultimatum into the Ziggs bomb, right? You can win duels all over the map and stall out with Ziggs, right? So like I think in this position, like if UBI was just handed BBZ's comp and we just like pre-drafted this, we're playing against an unknown enemy team, I think what we're talking about right now is like, okay, we're just trying to stall and wave clear, our 4-stack's gonna play really safe, and we need to play all our jungle pressure toward Camille, and then snowball Camille against Shen. And even though that's a good Shen matchup, it's not necessarily good 1v1 later, so you scale up Camille, you try to split push while you siege with Ziggs, and then you play really safe with the loop. So like I think BBZ definitely still has outs here, like I don't believe it's lost in draft. Even if it's maybe not the ideal situation.
The reason why I'm saying I think it's a relatively bad draft is because they're already looking at dive, and they already have the dive mindset. Like your guys are looking to dive, even with your guys' comp.
Yeah.
Like they when you're as I think Jeff said, like they banned out dive champs, so they're gonna dive. And multiple times during the game they positioned like you guys wanted to dive, but you guys don't need to dive at all.
Yeah. And like in terms of their bot lane, how does their bot lane choose to start a fight? Like Trundle has to be there in order to start a fight. And so if we just, one of the things that we do best on UB is we almost always know what quarter of the map the jungler's on. And so like, you know, our bot lane can play back for 15 seconds if we need to. And then the rest of the time, Coglulu don't have any autonomy.
I don't know. Sometimes Brian has a hard time waiting those 15 seconds.
it's
all right. We can win in 3v2.
It's so impatient. I understand.
You can see the woes of them still trying to gel together as a new team. You know, a lot of them are swapping to new roles. So not only are they learning, you know, their new role, they're learning their role on the team, how the rest of their team wants to play, which is something they'll just get better at over the season. I think BBZ overall is still going to be a very strong team once because they practice a lot, to my knowledge. I'm not entirely sure, but
we scrimmed them. TG did, and they blew us out of water. We played. It was a block of 3, but we ended up having to stop because our team was tilted. But one of the players that was surprising to me coming from top was Orphic. And mostly his Morgana is actually crazy, which he showed against Serenity Senate, how strong that champion can be. He plays it so aggressive. And I feel like even in this comp, if he has the reaction time, why don't you just pick Morgana?
You know, it's because you got the black shield for the defense from the Blitzcrank hook, keeps your ally from getting pulled Ash ult. Like it's so much utility in that sense.
You could see like going through the game. I think Fang commented on this a lot. BBZ always had an opportunity to like counter our plays with teleports, but they were still like, you know, Ziggs was out of mana, Camille's wave wasn't in the correct spot. So just a lot of things that like compile where they're not really entirely confident playing with each other, yet you just get better at it as the season goes on.
Yeah, one thing I want to see before the end of the season, like I want to see a game with Orphic top, Tef mid, Red and Jaffe support, just because like I'm curious. Like I know they swapped to this configuration, they believe it's better, Although, you know, with the Lucian rework back to bottom lane, maybe we'll see a return of red. We'll see. But,
Maybe. Yeah, that Lucian rework is nothing to... Yeah.
I'd say that again.
I was gonna say the Lucian rework's nothing to shake your nose at. Like, it's definitely gonna help him out a lot whenever he gets put back into that bot lane position. One thing I did want to bring up, and I was kind of wondering about this. You banned out the Akshan. Was that something that you expected Red to actually pull out, or was it just kind of like we just don't want to deal with this at all for any reason?
Red had it in his match history, and you know, coming from AD carry, you're like, well, you know, if there's a AD carry that can be played mid lane, why give the AD carry player an ADC?
Yep. Okay.
And
yeah, we also just have those extra bans. We see bottom lane, we see the Trundle flex, and because Trundle's between jungle and top, you kind of don't get a lot of value out of banning jungle laners. Like, they just send the Trundle to the other position. So yeah, we just wanted to last pick Corki in the first rotation and then just ban bad matchups so that I could get to total round, farm 10 CS per minute, die a couple times in the wrong spot, you know. It's a classic Sivolock Corki gameplay.
No, Oriri, what was it you were gonna say?
I honestly forgot.
Oh, it happened. Honestly, I totally get you. It's like sometimes you're like, oh, I have a thought, and you're like about to bring it out. It's like, wait, no, what was I gonna say? Oh, well, must not have been.
We can talk about the Ziggs autoing Corki for 5 minutes and then just the package.
Yeah, where was that? I remember.
Oh, here it is. I think, or maybe.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we got Red trying to chase you up. He just can't catch up to you.
Yeah, as you can see, you know, Red can opt to, like, Red knows like a fight's going to be happening soon in the top lane because Corki does have that package. So I think at this point, Red should just recall and look to TP wherever Corki shows up on the map. You know, because at this point he's out of mana, he hasn't purchased at all yet, and he has the TP up. So it's just something that you kind of get with more experience.
It's one of those things I've noticed, like with TP plays especially, like it's always like really tough sometimes to know when you need to be using it, like especially whenever you're like not regularly using TP, and it's like so important because it's going to affect you for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, it feels so bad when you feel like you need a TP and then it's actually wasted and you're like, oh my god, like I lose 3 ways for this.
They're losing so much top lane right now.
Teleported.
Yeah.
So it's hard. I will say though, like kind of a funny tidbit about the comms that were going on. As I was going top lane with the package, like I was saying, like pretty sure I just kill Red here, but like utility mods are just calling like, oh, I'm playing super slow, I'm kiting back, like we'll play slow, we're waiting for package. So I was like, I think I can kill Red here, but I don't want to let utility monster die. So, sorry, I have other places to be in top lane. Much as I'd like.
Yeah.
One of the things about
there with that low mana,
right?
Like going back to the TP plays, like sometimes I think it's just better. Like even if you lose 3 waves, sometimes it's just better for the team to sacrifice those 3 waves. Sure, you get a little bit further far and get your laner, but you might pull your team ahead. And some of these fights were maybe not close, but having 2 people there, a Ziggs and I believe it was a Camille, like doing that damage to bot lane when a Shen ults down or Corki package happens, sometimes it's just better to just go get a lead somewhere else and make that sacrifice.
Yeah, I think even Fang was mentioning, like BBZ just wasn't using their teleports. Like they're basically up all game. They're just only using them to go back to lane and never using their teleports.
I don't even think they used them to get back to lane. Like I don't think there was a single. I don't remember as. I think a TP happened late in the game, but that was a like. It was already really late too. It was already late. It was like 5-10 seconds behind where he needed to.
On Luna, so that was all of the Luna games for day 1. So on day 2, the first game of the day was Blue Bayou Zoo versus Serenity Senate. So over to Oriri, I kind of want to ask you, like with Serenity Senate being kind of the sister team of Terracotta, did you have any help planning for this particular matchup?
I try not to do that. I feel like it's unfair. Like I'm not, unless like I'm helping them out with my knowledge, but if I scrimmed BBZ, I don't want to give BBZ an unfair edge, or Serenity Senate an unfair edge against BBZ because it's like a moral code for me, and it was a problem last season with us, especially being in the same league. So I'm trying to still honor that. a lot of teams wouldn't scrim us because we were sister teams and we would give pass off information. That's what they were afraid of. So with this, so like I made a vow so be it to not do that, because it just having 10 brains versus 5 brains is unless you're Brian saying and Utility Monster and YUBI in general, like the 10 brains are probably going to be able to do better than 5 brains.
All right, well, so in that case, let's just kind of like look at this draft, just like looking at the 2 teams that got picked up. We had the initial set of bans being on the side of BBZ, Vladimir, Malz, and Ezreal. I mean, that's like 2 really powerful mid laners that just get completely taken out of the equation, but you have the Rise pickup from Serenity. And then just overall, pretty tanky on the side of Serenity Senate. It seemed like they were playing a bit of a safe game. But
yeah.
What's like your impressions, like you think of the way this game was originally going to go?
My initial impressions was I was really afraid for Serenity Senate with the comp that Bubazu had. It's very, very hard to, especially in lower elos. Like you have Twisted Fate, you have Twisted Fate ult, you have TP for Twisted Fate, you have probably TP for Fiora. Just all those map presence is really hard to communicate, especially when you're a relatively new team. They've only been playing for each other with a month. And a lot of the time, like, they're scheduling issues. Like, they're only able to practice, like, 3 times a week sometimes. Like, it's really hard to communicate, like, oh, Twisted Fate is off the map. Beware, keeping track of all those cooldowns all at the same time while you're trying to CS, get vision, prepare for Drakes. It's just really hard for it, especially a new team that's still trying to mesh.
What about
one thing that is cool about this draft in particular? I mean, I feel bad being the hindsight analyst, but like, like I feel like I would have said this in the moment too. Is that like BBZ's draft on paper looks like you get outscaled, right? Like Sinja falls off. Caitlyn is not amazing. Like she's really strong in lane, but like and super good really late. But like in the mid game where games are really decided, Caitlyn's not that good right now. That's why she's not generally played at professional level. And you look at Serenity, it's like Varus, if he's on hit, he scales really well. He might go lethality, right? But like you don't know from this point. Rise scales super well. Sejuani scales super. Even Alistar like is pretty good scaling from the support position. But the nature of BBZ's comp means they negate a lot of Serenity's scaling, right? Because all of Serenity's scaling is in team fight scaling. If you're playing in the side lane through Fiora, and anyone who goes to match Fiora is going to get instantly gated on and yellow carded, like no one can go match. Like 2 people have to be prepared to stop Fiora at all times, and if that's the case,
honestly, probably 3, right? Because of the Twisted Fate presence.
Yeah, like it's really brutal. So like, the explosiveness of BBZ's comp and the way that they have tools to do something other than front-to-back team fight, which I think like a lot of teams rely on, is like we have to be able to team fight, we have to be able to do dragons in order to win, and that's like a straightforward way to win. But I'm really excited that BBC's willing to do something totally different, throw out the window, and be like, yeah, we'll play a tight early game skirmishing split push composition, and we'll crush you with it. That's really cool.
And if their team gets ahead, like even I don't think if Serenity team with their big ultis, big team fight, like if BBZ gets ahead within the first 15 minutes, which they did this game big time, like their team fight is better. They have a lot of CC, they have a lot of catch, they have a lot of damage, especially single target damage. So
it's like Serenity is like the sledgehammer composition, and then BBZ is like the multi-tool, But once your multi-tool is strong enough, it's like we have answers to everything you can do. Like you need a pair of scissors, you need a can opener, like we got that.
I want to take a moment to look at this early game where BBZ invades through topside, and Sir doesn't take the opportunity to get any vision ahead of time, and then they finally decide that they want to go and walk up, and then they end up to a slight health disadvantage. Like BBZ got basically everything they wanted through like a decent advantage through that invade. Despite the fact that Sir had the opportunity to respond, they just didn't. So those early games is like, it doesn't take much time, but teams I really think should take the opportunity to practice counter warding and things like that. It'll give you a lot of power.
Yeah, UB definitely had to work on that last season, especially at the start of season. Like if we got invaded, like even if we didn't die, we wouldn't do anything. Because like if you see 5 people on one side, like they're giving up control of the other side, right? Like they can't be in 2 places at once. So if they're invading
you could see on the map here, like Alistar is making sure no one hits his tier 2 tower. No one's getting close to that
Varus
tower.
is double checking on the dragon, seeing if he showed up.
Until monster tries to execute at the tier 2 tower. Come on, like
Yeah,
Varus
and Alistar can definitely just like walk into the enemy red buff it and go get vision. They saw everyone on the top side of the map.
They can just place it on the raptor pit. Like that's a huge ward, especially
because
early game.
BBZ even knows, like they're like, hey, someone might be in our jungle since they put all 5 topside, so they ward defensively to make sure they don't get counter jungled. They have their team check red buff, so it's just something you can get a lot of information, and that information can be really helpful in these first couple minutes of the game, where Serenity just sort of did nothing, and you can see they now you know exactly where Sejuani's starting, so her first few minutes are probably like down the drain now. Now Xin Zhao knows he can get both crabs freely, and that just sort of can snowball out of control, especially with an early game jungler like Xin Zhao.
Yeah, like
that's exactly it.
LTY already getting chipped out.
Sir doesn't know like where they have to play safe from until they get vision on Xin Zhao.
Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, I know. It's like it starts getting kind of rough early on. We get a lot of really good bindings out of Orphic, and like as you mentioned before, Orphic's Morgana being really strong, playing it very far forward, getting those nice roots with a Caitlyn. That's just going to get you that headshot damage very early, and so it's going to be really helpful. Let's see here. We're going to skip ahead a little bit here.
Yeah, shout out to Tef for being the only player to have a win with Caitlyn this season in FoF.
Although I think Caitlyn's been going to Aphelios every other time, so...
Yeah, out of the 4 times Caitlyn's been picked, it has only won once. So it's, maybe teams should look into other potential AD carries, or, pair it with Morgana, which is really good with Caitlyn.
Yeah, just you gotta pair it with some kind of lockdown so you can get those traps off, right? But yeah, so like this game, I really feel like Serenity. Did you have any particular notes that you gave them after this game, Oriri?
The biggest thing is like Cheeky is not necessarily familiar on the Alistar Morgana matchup. Like he messaged me immediately like before the game, started asking for tips like into the Morgana matchup.
Ooh,
like,
that's never a good thing.
It's a really hard matchup, especially if the Morgana is good, which Orphic's Morgana, as I stated earlier, it's super clean. And I don't think they knew that he plays Morgana, so that's why they probably picked Alistar, thinking he was gonna probably play play Lulu again or play another champion, which even that Lulu does not counters Alistar relatively well too. So overall, seems like Orphic plays these anti-fun sports. You don't get to have fun.
I get to have fun. You don't.
yeah. So.
Yeah.
If you want your enemies to have fun when you're playing League of Legends, you're playing it wrong. They should be having.
See, I think that's probably my problem with why I like playing Leona so much, because it's like I feel like they have a chance if they stop me from getting there first. But if I get there first, then they're done.
And going back to the Morgana, like Alistar was completely negated. Number one, he doesn't know the matchup at all. He's relatively new to playing Alistar. Like he's asking for assistance. I can't give that much assistance like game day.
Yeah, it's like you got to do it all in the VOD review and like go after. It's like, okay, here's what you got to worry about with Morgana. Once the black shield goes up, wait for it to go down. Then you got a whole 12 seconds to do whatever you want.
But the biggest thing is like, if Morgana is good, she's gonna do her E in the middle of your dash. Yep. So you have to bait it, and it's really hard to bait it. So like one of the ways to bait it is Wing to a minion, not Wing to a champion, and then she activates. Like because they're gonna go into the mini wave, and if they go into the mini wave, you W the minion rather than the champion, and then you wait for the black shield to go down and you queue. And
or you
that's
W minion, force black shield, and then Q flash on the other turn. That always
Yep.
works. But you have to be pretty creative if you've never done it before. It's scary because if you mess it up, then you're bound in front of two people, and then you get the trap and like.
And Morgana, it's a Morgana Q, then Morgana ult, and then another trap, and then a snare.
Yep.
For Serenity Senate, I know a lot of their players are new to FoF, but this is sort of like one of those brush it off games. Like, it sucks we lost, but it's something we can probably learn a lot from, and it's, we shouldn't get too upset because BBZ is one of the best leagues or the best teams in the league, and it's one of those games that you just go over and you just keep trucking on. It's still the beginning of the season, and you still have a lot of time to grow as a team.
Yeah, I think in the Luna League, it's going to be like you guys, BBZ. I think are the top two that, like, if you lose against them, don't worry about it because they're the top two for a reason. H Block as well, I think.
I'm interested to see, H Block as they move forward. Like, I think they have potential to be up there, right there with us.
I'm personally not too high on BBZ with all the role swaps. Like, that's my biggest thing is, like, they role swapped a lot of their players. They definitely are high mechanical players. Orphic being the best top laner last season by vote. Red being an ADC player, already a high mechanical role. They have Tef, another highly plays ADC, and then they also have Dax, who's a really good jungler. So, and I think Jaffe's also relatively mechanically well. So I think a lot of their wins are going to come from out microing the other team rather than out macroing. Or I don't think if they get that down, I think they'll be fine.
So one thing I actually kind of want to pick your brain on in that case, because when we were talking about BBZ before the whole series started, Utility Monster made a comment about how the lane swapping, it makes a difference, and we wasn't discounting it. But then I brought up, I was like, well, yeah, but you still have to learn how the macro of that particular lane plays. So it's like one of those instances. Do you think, like, from a personal perspective, where do you think matter? Like, what's more important? Is it lane macro or overall game macro that has a bigger impact, you think?
I think when you first switch over to a role, the lane macro is super important. If you do not know anything about the lane, your game knowledge doesn't matter at all, really. Like, if you don't know, I have to freeze the wave here, I have to push the wave here, and not know that stuff, your game knowledge doesn't matter unless you're there beforehand. Prepping for those plays is really, really important because you're going to lose a lot on that side. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, I just wanted to pick your brain on that just because I had you here for a second.
You're fine.
And then
a combination of both, I guess.
Yeah, it always is, and essentially, it's like there's no wrong answer to that question. It's a matter of opinion. It's like, well, I mean, if you look at, for example, Faker, the man is a mechanical genius that it's like you really can't. He could probably just slot into any team and he's gonna just destroy it because there's no one who can outplay him. And I don't think we have anyone of that caliber yet within Friend or Foe. There might be a few who are on the cusp of that, but I don't think that they've.
I think
they have to get kicked out of the tournament.
Some players, I think, are like that. I think a lot of those players are actually in Helios League rather than Luna. I think Luna has better overall teams. I think Helios has a lot of better individual players, like Anti, for example, Bo Explode, for another example. Like, those players, if you put them on another team, they instantly make an impact on that team. Whereas you sub Jeff, for example, Jeffgodgamer with Iron Tower, it might not make as much as a difference. No offense to you, Jeffgod.
I think we'd smash every team.
I think Jeffgod takes offense. Jeffgod will remember that.
Hey.
All right, so hey, we're all friends here. It's friendly competition. Right? It's like you gotta rib on each other. So let's go ahead and hop into that next game, which was Fraud Squad versus H Block. So just right off the bat, looking at H Block's comp, like, you immediately go, this is gonna be nasty. Like, this is gonna be a lot of jumping, a lot of death just coming out of that team. And Fraud Squad, again, I've noticed this where it feels like a lot of teams, whenever they're going against these really strong teams and they start drafting really aggressive champs, they immediately go on the defensive rather than trying to match them in the fights. So they picked up the Braum Ashe like right away, just after seeing that Nautilus. So how do you think, like, overall, like from a drafting perspective, these two teams did against each other?
Well, I mean,
I
you see,
really-
like, I mean, right that H block, they have the Phelios for the Moonlight comp. Easily, you just counter with Glacials, so you just draft all the Glacial champions.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that TFT strat?
Got Olaf in the top lane to round out their glacial combo.
Yeah, right. Like, in Battle 5, like, Mordekaiser doesn't fit here, so I don't really know what squad's up to. But
Yeah.
more seriously, like,
No, it's like, that's honestly, I was loving that. I was like, oh my god, yeah, we got the Freljordians, let's go. And the Mordekaiser shows up, it's like, what are you doing?
I
I
personally,
will say Glacial Rangers from set 1 was amazing. I love that comp. But I love the Anivia, actually. I think you see Aphelios, Jarvan, Nautilus, and Anivia. Braum gives you a lot of control. So, like, I think the top half of the draft is totally fine. And then you even see with the Zed Echo Band, like, they know assassins are on the table, so those are off the table, you're protecting Anivia. And I wonder if it's like a scouting thing, like they had the opportunity to ban out like well, but maybe they don't know H Block's entire pool, right? I don't know what the exact situation. So unfortunately, like the LeBlanc gets through. But I like the concept. I think as long as you catch all those potential things that can slip through their cracks, like if LeBlanc isn't there to finish out the H Block team, they're left with all these like dirtily frontliners who have to run through Ashe, Braum, and Nivea and get obliterated, right? So like I think Fraud Squad has a very clear plan, and it's like unfortunately they forgot like a couple things that could still go through, but they clearly have a strong game plan in mind and they have a thought process here. So I'm looking forward to see what they do in the future.
this is a comp that Team Spirit definitely would have drafted last season. I don't think I watched this game in particular, but I wanted to see how the Nivea played, because a lot of the times, if a Nivea they have a very good strong, you don't come to me. You come to me, you die. You put a Nivea, you get to the objective first, like 45 seconds prior to, unless you know that they're going to be there, then you want to get there earlier. But 45 seconds is a good, and you prepare, and then a Nivea just ults and ulta an area that, like let's say at Dragon, they ult near mid between the tower of between the wall and Dragon Pit, that area. They can't walk there at all. And then if they come through the midway where the bush is at, you put your wall there. They can't get to the objective. So I don't think I watched this game very well at all. I think I watched like 5 minutes of it. But if they didn't do that, I think they're playing their comp wrong. I feel like they have a really strong. You can't come to me at all. Mordekaiser ult. Oh, you Jarvan Dash. You're ulted.
Yep.
You have LeBlanc, you're ulted. Like it
I
can't.
actually really dislike the Mordekaiser into Camille, because Camille is supposed to outscale the Mordekaiser so hard in the split. And there's no one else on on Fraud Squad that can really answer that Camille. But overall, yes, I agree. I think that the ability to kite back with Fraud Squad, with Anivia, with Sejuani, Ashe, Braum is incredible.
Yeah, I want to point out Sejuani's been played in FoF a lot. It's tied for the most popular jungle pick, but it loses almost every single game. It's a champion that I'm not too high on, especially in FoF. Like, imagine you replace Sejuani this game with Poppy. H Block just has an incredibly hard time ever doing anything in this game.
Yeah, or even green Sejuani. You can just play green Sejuani here. It's open. Otherwise known as Zach, but
Pretty much.
I didn't catch that.
I was thinking, wait, doesn't she already run green runes anyway?
Saying, oh, I should play Sejuani. What you should really be asking yourself is, should I be playing Zach right now?
Yeah.
I think Sedge is actually pretty good personally. That's just my personal opinion about that. I think they have a really good bot side with that. Sejuani and Braum is super strong anyways. Especially if he goes approach Braum goes approach velocity. I don't know his runes that he took this game, but going approach velocity with Ashe, Sejuani, and Nivea is, you're allowing yourself to, number one, if you can step forward faster and place your E and all that stuff. I think that's just something I would have done personally. But I play a relatively aggressive Braum in general, so slightly. Yeah,
That does make a big difference.
Johnny's definitely good, but I think it's just less general purpose, right? Like, you early picture Zach can slot into like any team comp.
Disengage,
Zach on our team, hell yeah. But like Sejuani's a little more specialized, right? So like I think you can pick it, but it should be later in the draft for a very specific reason. It's like we're really committed to the pick composition. We need a front line, but we don't want a committed engage. Because like if Zach is elastic slingshotting onto their AD carry, it's like, well, we're going to fight to the death. Like you're not leaving afterward, right? But Sejuani can like, you see a pick, you have the safety with your Q. It's like, oh, I can hop over this wall and throw ultimate. And if you miss, it's like, cool, we leave. We wait for like a minute and it comes back, right? Yep. So like,
no pun
I think if
intended,
you're not doing that with that in
flexible.
mind, right? Like,
Yeah.
Talking about this game specifically, I'm not actually sure how important the draft was. The game was over by 5 minutes.
Yeah, what we're seeing now is the synopsis of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if the game is like what I would call like it's H-Block's game to lose and not Fraud Squad's game to win. And good job to H-Block for following through and being able to pull off this game the rest of the way. They did a great job closing it out. If I were Fraud Squad, I would really look at the early game and see, what lessons you needed to learn to prevent this from happening in the future. And I was just really impressed with how H-Block moved around the map together and were just really down to fight when they knew that they had the advantage.
I mean, like, this looks really good for LeBlanc, but honestly, like, I think Nautilus is arguably the MVP of this game, right? Because, like, we saw Nautilus roam mid off of, like, that critical 3v2, and that, like, exploded the game. So now Nivea, like, hates their life, right? Like, you're laying against this super fed LeBlanc, you are not even level 6 yet, so you can't wave clear. It's just miserable.
Absolutely, yeah. And that was the third death that they had, and I'm pretty sure the Nautilus was involved in all 3 of them.
Yeah,
and I will, normally... I think, like, Fraud Squad can prevent that too, right? Like, sure, the matchup sucks for Nivea, but I think they have an opportunity for Jam to crash the wave. So, like, they get the gank onto LeBlanc, LeBlanc's chunked out, but the wave is still slow pushing into HBK, and Nivea has no mana to reset. So I think if they are on the same page, Nivea can call, like, hey, I need to home right now. We know Nautilus is roaming. I can't stay here. And then Sejuani and Nivea just duo shove through mid and then reset a Nivea. And like, sure, you sacrifice grab, but like, then you avert the potentially like, catastrophic fight, and then the Nivea gets to go home.
Yeah, normally in FoF, usually around the 5k gold lead is the point where like, all right, well, this game's probably over, and sort of it's generally like that in most league games. When you're 3/5 of the way there at 6 minutes into the game, it's pretty insurmountable from the beginning.
It's pretty gross at that point. Yeah, and so like with
One
that,
Go right ahead. One thing I did notice was the amount of blowouts is, I think, more than last season in the Heroic League. Like, we've had a lot closer games, but we've also had a lot more, like, complete blowouts.
I wonder if that has to do with the nature of where League is at as a game more than just the teams, because I've noticed that in my solo queue games as well, where a lot of my solo queue games, they're either a absolute raffle stomp for one side or the other, or it's a super tight, super close 50-minute game. So
there's definitely a lot more ways to push tempo now that your tier 2 towers give a lot more money. That second Rift Herald becomes incredibly valuable. And there's just a bunch of ways to accelerate the pace of the game, and HBK definitely accelerated this game. Their gold lead's almost 1,000 a minute.
Yeah, it's I think this is probably going to be the record for the biggest gold lead for a while, for finishing out of a game, just because it ends 37-4. It gets really gross, because at that point there's really nothing Fraud Squad can do, and it's like I do want to say, like, it's not against the rules to FF, so I do want to applaud Fraud Squad for playing it out to the end, despite the fact that it was as rough of a game as it was, and I think that's really important, and it's a really professional thing to do, to just continue to play the game even though you know that it's basically, you're like, okay, at this point we've lost the game, but we need to figure out how can we improve based off of what's going on right now. and just it provides you a lot of opportunities to learn.
Mm-hmm. I just don't think they played to their win condition much, whereas H Block played it to a T.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, and so with that, the last game of day number 2 was YUBI versus Team Azorth. So again, because I've got y'all here, I got to ask you, what were your thoughts going into this draft up against Taz?
Oh man, we got owned in draft, to be honest.
Yeah.
We had a few things that we knew we wanted to experiment with, and we did that. I guess I can't include myself in the we here, but the team did that.
Yeah, we went with the
shout out
plan.
to Joshi for subbing for me while I was on a work trip.
Yeah.
We went into this draft with the plan of what champions we wanted to pick, and somehow, even though we haven't really played a lot of those champions before, Team Azorth just knew. They just knew everything we wanted to play, and it all got banned. So
Yeah,
we definitely had to adapt our draft a lot.
Yeah,
The
you know, like,
one-
I was so
Go ahead,
sad.
sorry.
Like, Utility Monster's like, okay, Sivolock, this is your one chance. This is game 2 of week 1. We have a sub top. Like, take it easy. You don't have to pick one of the 3 champions on your spreadsheet. You can pick any champion you want. And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna play Vladimir. I'm gonna practice it, like a couple normal games to get ready. Like, it's not even like in my match history. Like, no one's gonna know that I'm gonna play Vladimir. It's not even that. And then they banned Vladimir. Like, they're not GGing my normal game history, and they're stopping me from playing Vladimir. I was pretty pissed. So going into this match, I was extremely demoralized. I'm like, I gotta run it down, guys. I don't care anymore on this planet. You know.
That's funny.
I really respected the Gnar pickup by Tass. That was actually a really smart pickup into Joshi.
Yeah, just don't have it, you know.
The one thing I
you know,
did,
anyone in Helios is watching, I'm pretty sure they've taken this lesson from Tass just to make sure Joshi can't have Gnar.
we banned it.
You're just like, no, just no.
We banned 4 supports and Gnar.
There you go.
The one thing like I really liked about Yubi's comp was the flexibility of their comp. They had 3 flex picks. Gragas can play into 3 different roles. Graves can play into 4 different roles. Like, technically 4 different roles, most likely 3. And then Set can play into technically 4 different roles. Like, I had no idea where anyone was going besides. And technically, Victor can play 2 different roles. So
That sounds great, Carver. I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry.
the only pick but on Taz side, I really liked the comp until the Swain. The Swain, I did not like at all. Like, you're picking Swain into Draven, where your thing is, I do a lot of damage early, and I do CC, whereas Draven's like, you don't do as much damage as me.
Yeah.
And you're also pulling me towards you. So, like, if this was like a straight up tank, I think this is way that draft ends up like Leona. If I don't think Leona's banned, like, pick Leona. Leona is relatively similar thing as Swain, just you have a tank threat now, and Draven doesn't get to play the game unless you have Gragas support.
Yep.
Which I don't think you guys play.
I mean, Brian plays everything. Brian literally plays everything.
You
It's
can
kind
see
of
your point going into the game. You know, level 1, we just walked up to Tassa's ball lane and killed them.
Yeah, like, there's nothing they could do, because they, like, Kaisa with Swain is also very questionable, because Kaisa, sure, you have the damage of Swain, but Kaisa really doesn't care about doing damage, especially into a Draven lane. You're not gonna out damage Draven unless you get a single target Q, but you have a Set support. You're gonna hit Set if you're gonna hit anybody. So I think the biggest issue was the support pick rather than the Kaisa.
Now
I put all in on Taz, by the way. I saw their first 4. I all in Taz immediately. I was like, this is gonna be the game. And then I saw the Swain. I was like, I just lost all my points, because the Swain just changes the draft so much.
Let's see. I think this is where that level 1 happens. Like, what, 3 minutes into the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I basically get I tell Brian, I'm like, you know, once I have my second axe, we can just walk up to them and murder them. and
Yep.
that is what happens.
There's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do.
See, I pull my second access. Says, okay, we're fighting. And then, you know, we're still level 1. They're definitely not ready. Brian doesn't even need to flash. He can just walk up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the big lesson here is that laners can't count to 2 when they're playing, whether it's level 2 or 2 axes.
Yep. Oh man, just in general, Draven is like one of those scary champions in the bot lane until you see how they play. Then you know, yes, my fears were warranted, or oh my god, why am I afraid of this guy?
And like, if you're going to draft Swain Kai'Sa, you can't leash either. Like at all. You want to pull the wave, and they didn't do that. They leashed. Nunu should have started, because they do actually have, like, if they get a gank, their gank potential with Nunu, Swain, Kai'Sa, that's a lot of damage coming out, especially from the Nunu.
I also was able to you know, smartly execute to the tower, so I don't have to waste all the extra time recalling. I'm able to, you know, it's still like before 3:30, so my death timer is super short, and when you die, you get the home guard boost instead of just normally recalling. So it's basically like an advanced cheater recall when you think about it. So now I have the home guard boots, and I'm able to run back to lane faster.
That is some high key strat right there.
That's some 5-head play right there. Way to go.
Fortunately, you know, this week I have yet to die to another player. I've only died to that tower, so I'm looking to get revenge against tier 1 bot side tower next week.
Ah, that's your ultimate enemy, I guess, then, huh? Your nemesis.
We had a lot of debate over whether that dash should count for purposes of the KDA leaderboard. Where like, do executes count? Like, you know,
It counted for mine. It counted for me. So
yeah, they count because you died. It's your fault you didn't calculate tower damage into your
I'm
team fight.
pretty sure in my case I perfectly calculated the tower damage. I was just calculating even further.
you were just going even further beyond, essentially.
I died as Alistar with ult to tower. I should have ulted sooner. I don't know, would have lived, but I didn't, because I didn't think I was going to need it until it was too late.
But yeah, at this point the game is incredibly hard. You know, you're basically saying like our bot lane is now useless for the rest of the game, so we have to, you know, get Viego and Gnar to basically set up, like, you know, sick Viego plus Gnar combo and just constantly reset. And, you know, just hope your bot lane dies as few times as possible, which they definitely did stop dying for a few minutes, and then they started chain dying again.
That's kind of how it sometimes seems to go.
Yeah, I still think like this game definitely changes with if you just pick a tank support here instead of Swain. Maybe they were thinking like, oh, they were rushed, like they did not know who to pick here because they weren't expecting Draven. So maybe that was it, and they just were like, Swain. I don't know why you want to pick Swain into Draven, but like they were just like Swain.
Onbo really likes the high damage supports, I've noticed. So he really likes Swain. Swain's kind of like a comfort pick for him. So I think that the objective there was like, oh, he's picking Draven, so let's just try and kill Draven early and shut him down early and get as much damage as we can onto him, take him out. But
my whole issue is Leona does the same thing as Swain, just she's a tank and works really well with Kai'Sa because you have a root, you get her passive going relatively quickly. Especially in team
both sides.
I'm actually going to stop you here in terms of, I think that whether they were playing Swain or Leona during that level 1, they would have died either way.
I completely agree with you on that point, because they were playing way too far pushed up, and they were not shutting down the Draven. I think if Leona had taken exhaust, that would have been a different story in that sense.
I also like Swain didn't use any summoner spells level 1. I wasn't exhausted, or he didn't flash away, so he basically just died for free.
Yes.
It was the lag. I'm gonna blame lag then.
I agree.
Sometimes, yeah, that's sometimes what happens. Well, okay, so that's day 1 and day 2 of Luna League. So that's kind of like how things just played out in general. Was there like, after having once again kind of like refreshed your memories on everything, was there anything in particular that just like stood out to you that we need to be keeping an eye on for the next set of matches? Because I'll go ahead and pull up the next day's matches right here real quick.
Yeah, I think our upcoming match against H Block will be a pretty big one. H Block would be, I'm assuming H Block would be 2-2 if they, or 2-0 if they didn't have to forfeit their first game. And we do see them currently as our biggest competition in the league, especially after their really dominant first game. So that's definitely the game I'm looking forward to the most. Also seeing COF actually get to play this week is something
if we don't
that
have
is
forfeits.
definitely
Yep.
yeah.
There's still time.
They may be the immaculate victors. Maybe that's what's gonna happen. Just no team can go up against them because it's the Church of Alfonso.
I'm starting to think they're just DDoSing everyone. That's the only way.
DDoSing in real life.
I'm looking at personally, especially from my org's perspective, is Serenity versus H-Block.
Mhm.
Sure, that game I think will determine second, third, or fourth for Serenity specifically. If they can beat H-Block, like I'm way more confident in that team. Like I'm already confident in the team in general. I really like all the players, but mesh-wise, I think H-Block is surprisingly really well meshed for being a new team, and a new team to like Luna, the heroic leagues, and just that synergy. If Serenity can get that synergy, and it showed in the first game, but the second game didn't show as much. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. So we've got the YUBI versus H-Block game on Tuesday the 31st, and then the Serenity HBK game on August 30th. That you two are excited for. Was there Sivolock Freelancer? Was there anything in particular you guys are you looking forward to playing Freelancer? I should ask you that.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. This is a great patch for me.
This is actually when we announced he's getting benched.
Hopefully I don't have to go in tank jail. We'll see. I mean, if the draft says I need to go to tank jail, I've been practicing, but I'm looking forward to play some fun picks.
We have some spicy
Just play
tech,
Wukong. Just play Wukong.
Wukong!
He's back, the Monkey King himself.
No.
So you go Wukong, and then you just build Sunfire, or you build Divine Center, depending on what you guys need. You guys don't need to actually damage Wukong. So
just play tank monkey.
So Fraud Squad has a lot of like individual potential. And BZ is kind of the more established team, but they've had their role swap, so they're kind of a bit shakier in their individual lanes compared to like what we might expect. So I expect like it might be a bloodier game where both teams have the opportunity to shine. It's kind of the match that I expect to be closest out of the games on Tuesday. Where I don't know what's going to happen between YUBI and H-Block. Like, I don't have a good prediction, but
we win those. What are you talking about?
Okay.
We are confident.
But for all of the other matches, like Sir versus COF, I'm almost certain Church of Alfonso is going to win. And then SKL versus TAS is going to be an exciting one, but I'm pretty sure TAS take that one. But that one's going to be fairly close too, but...
I think as long as Taz...
It's definitely... Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, I think that Taz, as long as they keep up their aggression, keep up their hard pushing power, and start getting some really good shot calls in there, I think the SKL match is definitely going to be really exciting, and they have a really good chance in that one.
For the COF versus Sir, I kind of disagree with you. I think COF is still a huge question mark. Sure, they still have 3 players. Oh, there we go. You guys are back. You guys are frozen for a very long time.
Oh, okay.
Sir versus COF, I think like the COF is still a huge question mark for me because they haven't played and this in the scene yet. So I think that's gonna be a big issue for them. This is technically their first game on Monday.
Yeah, the versus the Fraud Squad. Yeah.
Yeah. So and if they lose that game, that first loss against with any team is still really, really rough for. Even if you're an established team, like if YUBI loses one time, they're obviously gonna have that. It's still gonna mentally shake them, especially if it's on a Monday. Like you don't have time to relax. You're instantly shaken up for Tuesday. So I feel like that if they win, I think they'll be fine against Serenity. But I think Serenity, with already losing one game, no offense to Serenity, I feel like they can bounce back, especially with the long weekend that they had. with between it.
Okay, I definitely agree.
We'll see how it
I agree
goes.
on that.
Yep.
Yep, we'll definitely see how it goes. We'll have to wait and see. That's all going to be on Monday, August 30th is when we're going to start all that. So that should be just coming up here for us as the time of recording of this. That's all I really had for talking about the Luna stuff. Obviously, so I know, like, it's going to become a meme, I bet, where it's like I wanted to make these shorter. Just keep getting longer. So eventually we're gonna have a 12-hour stream, and it's just gonna be an all-day thing where we'll see what ends up happening with
Nice.
that. But let's go ahead and close this out because I believe we got some more. You called them the Jeff stats. I nicked them. Show me the Jeff facts. I'm not sure. Koshi's already Sunga's already getting ready to, like, he's like threatening to axe me. The axe is like hanging over my head at the moment. It's like for that.
No, that can't happen.
Hey, I'm getting too punny. It's too much. So apparently,
It's a serious lounge.
yeah, we're a super serial team. I mean, serious team organization.
I mean, they have this or that in LCS,
Yeah.
so like, and that's
the Jat
relatively funny.
stats.
The Jat stats, exactly. Well, so go ahead, show us the Jeff facts.
Today, I have two very important questions that I feel like you guys already sussed out one of my questions. But if you couldn't tell, over in the last week of FoF, which is Luna days 1 and 2, and then Helios days 3 and 4, one side has definitely won a lot more games. So my question for you guys today is, over the last week of FoF, which is the days I just specified, not including forfeits, what is red side's win rate? And you can get to the closest 5%.
35%.
Let me see. It's a total of, what is it, 8 games?
It is over 12 games.
12 games.
16 games.
12 not counting forfeits.
12
Okay, 12 not counting forfeits. Okay.
Let's
I'm
see.
saying
That's,
35.
I'm gonna say.
I hate you for making me do percentages in my head. 4, 12.
27%.
I'm gonna go with 25.
And Mr. Sivolock.
Well, rationally, if I'm trying to win, I need to pick something in between like the other choices so that I optimize my winning chances. So I guess like 12 games. Which games are... I guess I'm gonna go with 25 too. I'm boring. 25.
I can say none of you guys were very close.
Oh no.
Red side's win rate is currently 2 out of 12.
Which
is
I thought I
a
could have sworn
7
they'd won 2 more.
It is a 17% win rate if you are on red side. With the only teams winning on red side has been YUBI against BBZ and INT against TG. Are the only red side wins in the last week.
Oh, I think I
uh,
was factoring in some other games that may have been the problem.
If you count the
we won against PTP on red side.
but
think
that
your
was the
stats were
first
wrong.
week. Yeah.
That was the first week.
I
Yeah.
was talking about just the last week of games.
He's getting
Yeah.
it's getting the semantics in there that's messing us up.
So you're talking about just week 1.
Yep.
Luna
yeah.
week 1 and Helios league 2.
Oh, we won last week on red side.
Did you?
Well, technically on Thursday.
I will double check my. Oh, you're right. Yeah, you won against I misread. You guys won against PTP. INT won against TG on red side week 1. But yeah.
Yeah.
And then going off of that, even forfeits are one-sided with even the team that forfeits is almost always on red side. So even if
I've noticed
red side has a 25% win rate.
it's the Tarzan
other-
strat. It's the Tarzan strat.
My second question today is talking about one of the most popular champions in FoF. The first question is, what champion has been picked the most across both leagues this season in FoF, and what is its pick rate? Also to the closest 5%.
Ugh. Again, you're making me do numbers. I'm gonna have
I think it's Jarvan.
It is not a jungler.
It is not.
It's not a jungler.
Mm-mm. I'm thinking it's a top laner.
That is correct.
Specifically set.
It's set.
It's set.
It has to
It
be
is.
set.
It is set with 6 picks top lane and 1 pick in support.
Oh, there's Brian. Brian's set.
It's Brian.
Yeah.
But overall, it's had a 40 or a 38% pick rate, and you can see why, as it just kind of keeps winning.
I wonder what its overall win rate is. with
It's
7
actually
picks.
it's
above
around
70, isn't it?
60%.
Oh, okay.
So
It
it's
is
won-
currently 4-3.
4 and 3.
Yep. So having the most picked champion with the highest percent win rate, I guess statistically we just pick Set.
Yep.
And you win.
I honestly, I feel like Set is definitely one of those champions he's great, and with the new JoJo season coming out, he's just going to get even more popular. So,
In comparison, Jarvan's only been picked 5 times, but has won 4 of those games. So definitely a OP
PG
champion.
needs to pick both.
What's the win rate for Shen?
The
0.
Shen win rate. Well, Shen has been played as a support once, so it has an overall win rate of 50%.
Okay.
all right. Well, was it just the 2 questions today?
That
Just
is
the-
all I have today.
Just those 2 today. Okay, those are some good ones though. So Set and man, a 17% win rate for red side. That
the
is
best way to win FoF is to be on blue side, apparently.
apparently like drastically.
We'll do our best to even out the win rate of the sides. Yeah.
All right, well, that's what we're going to be looking forward to in the next games. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close it out here. Oriri, I want to say thank you for dropping by. It was good to have you. And Freelancer and Sivolock, first time we've had a pairing showing up as well. Jeff, once again, the Jeff facts are amazing. We're going to have to keep those going, and it's just going to get better as time goes out. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for dropping by. And with that, we're going to go ahead and close it out here. I want to say thank you again once more to our sponsors, Adobe Creative Cloud and Logitech Gaming. We greatly appreciate the support there. And everyone else, we look forward to seeing you on August 30th, Monday, for the first day of the Luna, or third day of the Luna League. It's going to be, Luna's going to be playing then, and then we've got Helios coming up the Thursday, Friday after that. Keep an eye out for the Lounge, which we'll hopefully have ready to go before those games on Thursday, Friday. This one should be showing up on your feed here momentarily as well on Monday. We hope you all have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves and be safe.